Good evening.
Great.
Okay. If you just came in, please rename yourself to. Before we start, we have a few house rules. So for those who just came in, rename yourself to your club name dash your name, or if you're a guest, then guest dash your name. Okay. And if you can, please turn on your video cam, your webcam. This is to encourage online presence. And thirdly, to mute your mic whenever you're not talking to reduce background noise. And for the fourth one, we have our Q&A towards the end of the workshop. So if you have any questions in between sessions or during the sessions, post it in the chat. And then we'll tend to it. We tend to most, if not all of it, in the Q&A. And for the fifth unwritten rule is to enjoy. Okay, with that. So contest season is an annual affair in Toastmasters. 'Tis the season for folks to come together and to put on their best to wow the audience in 3 categories. So we have international speech, table topics, and evaluation. All 3 which we Toastmasters, we are all familiar with in our regular meetings. For those new to Toastmasters, international speech is basically it's prepared speeches. So you prepare a speech and then you present in the contest. So whether you're here to win, to gain confidence, or just here to improve your communication, impromptu, and critical thinking skills, this workshop is the place to be. So champions of each category would move up to the next level, starting from the club level. So you start from your club contest in all 3 categories, then moving up to area, then division, subsequently district. So district, in our District 87, it encapsulates multiple countries, including not just East Malaysia, but also Brunei, Indonesia, Brunei and Indonesia. For the international speech, this category goes on even further beyond district. So if you win the district level, you go on to the region quarterfinals, which is pretty much East Asia, and then finally onto the international stage. Well, it used to be a stage, but since now we have this social distancing thing, we are doing contests virtually. So how do you give your best in contests? Or do you just want to take things up a notch? Or you're just here to improve? So this evening, we have 3 very remarkable yet credible speakers, all past winners, to help us with that in our workshop. So with that, we begin with our first speaker, Winnee Raplin. She is the Division K International Speech and Table Topic Champion 2 terms ago. She's our current VPPR. And when she's not in the club, outside of Toastmasters, she's a home baker and she does music covers. So you can look her up on Instagram at Winnee Bakes KK, or on YouTube, you just search her name, Winnee Raplin. With that, let us put our hands together and welcome our first speaker, Winnee Raplin, with Speechcraft.
Thank you, Eugene, for that very promotional introduction. Thank you so much. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope that you'll learn something from today. So before I go into that, how many of you have never joined a Toastmasters international speech before? Raise your hand. I've never joined. Anita, please. Okay. All right, I hope that after this workshop, you'll be inspired to join, will be next year. For our club, it's the 10th of January. Okay, let's begin. I'll share my screen. Okay, good. So why do we need to learn how to craft your speech? So 2 years ago when I joined the speech contest, I didn't know what to put in it. I know nothing at all. But thank goodness actually for this pandemic, I learned a lot, and I also learned from a few champions, district champions, as well as world champion. And I can't wait to share all the knowledge with all of you. Okay, let's start. So today's discussion, I'm going to cover 4 areas: how to choose a topic, how to choose a title, and how to structure your speech, and how to make every word counts. So for international speech, we have 3 objectives, which is to persuade, to entertain, and to inspire. That is Sherry Sue, the first runner-up of 2018 World Public Speaking Championship. And then her speech title was Turn Around. I really liked her very much. She said that a world-class speech should have a world-class message, world-class story, and of course, world-class effort. So what kind of effort? Let's move on. Okay, this is for judging criteria. So the content we have 50%, language 20%, and delivery is 30%. Now, according to my experience, although the delivery is only 30%, however, it is as important as the content, because just like a good Christmas gift, you need to wrap it up really nicely and deliver it, or else whatever is inside, it's not going to be presented well. So Haffiz later will be sharing on that delivery content, the delivery side. So how do we choose a topic? First of all, we ask ourselves 3 questions. If you had 7 minutes left to live, what kind of message that you would want to leave to your friends and family and the world? What kind of legacy do you want? For example, you have the message has to be deep and on personal level. And what kind of events changed my life? It doesn't have to be a very big event like a car crash or a major depression or a divorce. Sometimes small event, mundane matters, but massive ideas also work. For example, like Yogesh Kapoor, the event that changed, he was the champion of this year, District 87. The event that changed his life was when he rescued a bug from a fountain. So that's a small thing, right? But it changed his life. That's the aha moment that he got, the epiphany that transformed him in the speech. And is the message relatable? It has to be relevant to all of us. Okay, you don't want to promote veganism or animal rights in your speech. You want something that everyone has gone through it, and the problems like hopes and fears and dreams that all of us can relate to. Moving on, how to choose a title. Now, the title is as important as your content, because your title will spark curiosity. How do you do that? You can choose a tagline that is also your message. For example, Sherry Sue. Her title is Turn Around, but that's also her tagline. And her message was to turn around and face your fear. Secondly, use a short and mysterious title, just like me. You don't want to reveal everything, okay? Like, I see something. You see what? You don't know. The ultimate question. What kind of question? And then try to avoid all the cliches like chase your dreams, face your fear, all this. No. Try to be as creative as possible to choose your title, okay? Move on. How to structure your speech. So in this section, I will share the 10 C's which we will go through it right now. So in the structure, you have, I realized that after studying all this champion speech, I studied I found out that there are two types of structure that you can use. The first one is you open with a question and then you have three different stories, small stories, which lead to a change and then you conclude it. That's the first type. The second type is you just give one story. That's all. Like Aaron Beverly, last year champion. He only has one story about the wedding. So he spoke for 5-6 minutes about the story, and then on the last minute, he concluded with a simple message. So you can choose either one to structure your speech. I do realize that they have these similarities. Is they keep saying their tagline, whatever it is. You keep repeating it, just like what Winston Churchill said. If you have a point, you keep hitting it, hit it until you got a tremendous whack. You really want it to be embedded in the audience mind. Remember that. Now the structure. So whatever that you say, whatever actions that you do, it should trigger some kind of reaction. What kind of reaction? Either you're confused, you're happy, you're sad, or angry. Every word counts. So it's a roller coaster of emotion. That's speech. Now let's go to the opening. The first C, curiosity. Okay. The first second that you enter the stage, that you start speaking, you have to spark curiosity. You have to create rapport within 30 seconds. Now, I love Darren Day. He opened his speech with an underwear. I thought that was funny and brilliant. You can watch his winning speech on YouTube. Every winning speech is on YouTube. You just subscribe to Toastmasters International. I think that was a very brilliant idea. You can open with a question, a dramatic statement, or even jokes, as long as it sparks that curiosity. And once you do that, we go into the body, which includes circumstance, conflict, character, conversation, climax, change, and comedy. Now let's move on. First, you want to paint the circumstances. Okay, you paint the picture. You throw in a story first. You involve the 5 senses, your hearing, your listening, and everything. Smell. I'll give you an example. The handsome stranger leaned towards me. He touched my lips and took a closer look. He was so close that I caught a whiff of his cologne. My palms were sweating. My heart was racing. Our gaze was locked. And he said, "Miss, your tooth is rotten." So you want to paint all this picture. By the way, that's a true story, okay? Now, conflict. You have internal and external conflict. Internal means your struggle within yourself. You can struggle with self-image, self-control. And external means you're struggling with another person. So another person involves a character. Character, of course, you are the main character. And I would suggest that don't involve too many side characters because audience can't remember them all. And if you want to use character, use short names. Jim, Sam, Sindhu. You want to have a hero or a guru in your speech. This guru is someone who teach you the lessons. Okay, it doesn't have to be a real person. It could be the Buck, like Yogesh. It could be a fictional character from the comic. And your characters should transform. If there's no transformation, there's no story. Okay, you have to change. Now, moving on, conversations. This is what I didn't know I should have in a speech last year when I joined. It's why we need to have conversation, because it brings the story alive. It gives you the chance to have vocal variety and all that you need to make the story come alive. So conversation, we have 4 types. The first one is character dialogue. It's simple conversation between 2 people. Internal dialogue, which is your thoughts. I wonder what would that be, for example. Audience dialogue, it's something that you have to involve the audience. Obviously, via Zoom, we cannot do that anymore. And projected dialogue. This is saying out the audience thoughts. I'll give you an example. And this is actually by Darren Day. At this point in time, if you're wondering, how long is Darren going to have his underwear outside his pants? That's the projected dialogue. And you want to know something? Darren Tay used all of these dialogues in his speech. So if you want to win, try to involve all of them. Okay? Of course, except for audience dialogue. And then moving on to the climax. Now you paint the picture. You build up everything, the characters, conflict. Now you're at a tipping point. You're at that turning point. You're about to break down and everything. You're frustrated. It's very dramatic at this point. So what do? You have to do something. So for this example is Manoj. He, at his tipping point was when he was having an argument with his wife. They were no longer talking to each other. So what did he do? He asked his mother for advice, and his mother showed him the metaphor of the bow and the arrow, and that give him an aha moment, which leads us to change. So there are three things you need to change: the mindset, behavior, and the story. So the arrow and bow metaphor changed his mindset to compromise in the story, in the relationship, and it changed his behavior. He become more, he become better. He treats his wife better, and of course, the wife also treats him better, and the relationship become better. So that's how change come about. And comedy, whether you like it or not, you have to have some kind of humor in your speech. Stephen Fernando said you have to have at least 3 jokes in your speech. And world champions have, on average, have 2.5 laughs per minute. Remember that. To entertain. What kind of humor that you can have? Self-deprecated jokes are the most common one. Think of any embarrassing moments that you have. And then the last one is unexpected reply. This is what is most used in the champions, world champions. Unexpected reply is like a twist. I'll give you an example. Be strong, I whispered to my dying Wi-Fi signal. So that twist, you create that twist there and then create humor. Okay. Tomorrow, STMC will be having Stephen Fernando as one of the speakers. So you can drop by in tomorrow and listen to him sharing on the humorous presentation. Now the closing. We've come to the closing where you want to close everything. You got a message. You have to have callbacks. What are callbacks? Callbacks is like you mentioned something earlier in your message and then you move until the end. You mention it again. So you call it back. So a lot of speeches have callbacks. And then Katani, he got a very brilliant use of callback. He opens it with the cigarette and then he closes it with the cigarette as well. So the story feels complete. It's like a circle. It's like a closure. Okay, you want that. And then at the end of your story, of course, you need to have a carry away message. A message that is also acts as a call for action. I'll give you his example. Your mouth can spit venom, or it can mend a broken soul. Ladies and gentlemen, let that be our goal. So he told a story. You want to turn I's story into your message. I story, your message. Okay, remember that. So we have the 10 C's here. First of all, you have to spark curiosity, paint the picture, the circumstance, create conflicts, create characters that will spark conversations, interesting conversations. You have to have some laughter throughout, comedy. And when you reach the climax, what makes you change, the epiphany, and then you change. You have a callback, and then you have a carry away message that's also called for action. Remember the 10 C's. Now, how do you make every word count? You only have 5 to 7 minutes. It's a very short one. I've counted on average, a champion speech has 803 words. So you want to try to craft your speech around that number. Of course, depending on your speaking style and speed as well. I remember my speech was around 700 words last year. So how to make them count? We have 3 things that we can do. Simple and concise. Use simple words, direct words, and concise. It has more impact. Brevity is the soul of wit. Shakespeare mentioned it. Avoid long words, avoid all the jargons. Okay? Use heal instead of recuperate. Use pay instead of remuneration. It is also easier to pronounce, easier to remember. Now, this is Presian. Interesting fact, he only had 473 words in his speech. And he clocks at 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Very short, but somehow he won. You guys should go and watch his speech on YouTube. It's all on YouTube. You can see how he used short sentences to create humor and also that very impactful punchline in the end. And we have a rule in writing. If you can use one word to describe two words, use one word. For example, majority of, most, prior to, before, very funny, hilarious. Use one word, short and impactful. Now, we are here to inspire our audience. So you don't want to sound smart. You want to sound emotional. You want to persuade them to buy into your idea, your message, your stories. Use words like explain your emotions, that trigger emotions. Instead of disclose, explain. Elderly, old. Demise, death. Use words that are familiar to the audience. Okay? And last but not least, rhetorical device. This is to spice up your speech, to make it sound better. Every champion speech has rhetorical devices. Okay, and these are the top four that I think are the most common one. So what are they? Firstly, alliteration. For example, it's Anita and Amran are awesome. So you noted A there, alliteration. Metaphor, simile, is a comparison of two unlike things. The world is a stage. And Darente also used a very brilliant metaphor, which is the underwear. The underwear is a metaphor of the bully. So use metaphors in your speech. The third one is chiasm or chiasmus. It's two inverted phrases. For example, ask not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. It's very common. And the rule of three. This is the most common one in the speech. Three things just sound better. I came, I saw, I conquered. He was short, he was bold, he was the love of my life. Use the rule of three in your speeches. It will bring it to a whole new level. You're writing a speech not for the eyes, for the ears, okay? You have audience, not readers. Keep that in mind. Okay, wow, it's the end of the journey. Thank you for still staying here with me. I hope that I'm not shocked sendiri here. Well, it's a lot of things to digest, I know. I hope that you remember all of them. Let me do a short recap. So we learned how to choose a topic. Remember the 3 questions. We learned how to choose a title, make it short and sweet, just like me, and how to structure them, use the 10 C's, and how to make every word count, because you only have 5 to 7 minutes. So that's all from me. And here's the quote: the difference between winning and losing is all in the details. Whatever details you put in there, make it count. And I want to credit my content to all these people: Lee Chen Jun, Yoga, Stephen, Toastmasters International, and Tactical Talks. You can get them and read more about them. And of course, YouTube. Thank you. And back to you, EJ.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Winnee.
Awesome.
And you're definitely not shocked and react. There's so much
course.
information to digest there.
Yeah.
Just wow. Thank you so much, Winnee. Speak to the heart. There's a saying that you speak to someone's mind, you touch their heart, and you tickle their funny bones. And to achieve all this, Winnee has explained it thoroughly, just thoroughly, with all that in-depth analysis. Excellent. Yes. Okay, just a reminder for everyone, if you have any questions, post it in the chat down below and we will tend to that in the Q&A session, right? Next speaker. Next speaker, we have Mohd Haffiszul on speech delivery. Well, in Toastmasters, he is the Division K International Speech first runner-up for last term. He's also KKTMC's past president and also the past area K1 director. Outside of Toastmasters, he does a podcast named Kopitiam Council. So he hosts this podcast with his mates, Nikki, Ifti, and Ikram, and they talk about all sorts of topics, from current affairs, politics, history, technology, and even religion. So you can look for Kopitiam Council on Spotify. So you just type in Kopitiam Council in your Spotify search and you see this image. That's the one. Okay, with that, let us welcome our second speaker, Mohd Haffiszul, to talk about speech delivery. Mohd Haffiszul.
Thank you very much, moderator Toastmaster Eugene Hugh. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right. Before I launch into my presentation, I have two things to inform all of you. First is if I can, when I start the presentation later on, I want you to view my presentations using speaker view and then split your screen into half. So go to your full screen first if you're not full screen already. And then you can see top right, there's options. It has view gallery, view, speaker view only. So click speaker view. And then when you see the speaker view only, later on, the screen share will be on the left. My video will be on the right. So that's the first thing I want to confirm. All right. If you have problem doing that, it's all right. It's okay. But if you can, that would be better. Secondly, I will be using a video from my car, the latest champion of world public speaking, the first winner of virtual public speaking. So I will be using the video and I will be post every now and then. And what I want you to do is every time you see something that I don't mention in my points, I want you to write it down the chat below. And if you have noticed something that I noticed as well, just type woohoo down there. All right. Shall we begin? Just nod your head. I can see some of you nodding your head. Yes, that's a good sign. Okay, give me a minute or a second. I guess everyone can see what I'm sharing now. Just want to check. Okay. All right. So most of you can see on your left, the video, on your right is my video. Okay. I will start the video now.
Mike Carr, the librarian, and Mrs. Montgomery. The librarian and Mrs. Montgomery, Mike Carr.
I was spellbound as I watched the sheriff who had just been shot slide back open that heavy metal door, stagger forward a couple of steps, look deep into the camera and say, I before E except after C. Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, I was in the 6th grade in Mrs. Montgomery's class watching an educational video where a sheriff was teaching us about writing while a bad guy named Bad English was shooting at him. It was on a film projector because we were technology challenged in my school. And as I watched that film, all of a sudden something started looking strange. The film slowed down, and when it picked back up, it made a sound like tick, 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 and it looked like it was blinking. Then the sheriff was talking to us from the side of the screen. The blinking started again with a loud noise. Ooh, everything went.
All right. First point that I have, I'm going to stop over here. So if you, sorry to disturb you're watching, but the first point that I want to emphasize on what the world champion Mike Carr did, he was using webcam as a prop. All right. We all been told, even by Winnee just now, your opening must be attention grabbing. So in a normal speech, you can do something like your quotation, you say something, a bold statement, you quote from someone, but in a virtual meeting, you have another one that you can use, which is your webcam. As you can see, Mike Carr started from the bottom of his screen and then rise up to the center and get closer to the webcam. This is a next level of using webcam as a prop. So first of all, he picked or he quote an excerpt from a movie, plus his very animated movement. It made people curious. What is this? What is it about? Action movie or something with the big heavy steel doors? So like Winnee said, Mike Carr successfully created a curiosity in the audience within 30 seconds flat. Because if you could not catch the audience curiosity within 30 seconds, you're probably gonna lose them midpoint. So you don't want that to happen. So immediately be as exaggerative as you can be, right? The next one is varies your rate of speech, all right? So you can see Mike here, yes, he was talking about the projector and the projector become slowed down. He could have said the projector was slowing down and then we couldn't really see because the screen was flickering. That's what most people say. But because he got a different or another level kind of delivery, what he did was he said, slow down. And he used his finger to play with the webcam to mimic an actual flickering. Now, this is something that are very effective for two reasons. For those who can relate, for those who, you know, baby boomers who actually been there witnessing the projector, they can get themselves immersed in what Mike Carr was trying to say. So that's a good point. It's like reliving that memory. Oh yeah, I remember my projector was like that. So he used that to crawl back the emotion that we have in the past. And for those who cannot relate, I'm talking to you, millennials. For those who cannot relate, this visual, the words that he's saying are good enough to make the millennials understand how projector used to be in 90s or in 80s. So all audience, without exception, get that how Mike Carr wanted it to be. All right. So no one going to be like, what is he doing with this projector now? LED, why is doing like that? Doesn't make sense. But because he explained it that way, and because all this excessive movement, that was, I think, well done on another level by Mike Carr. So the third one that you have is overkill your opening. You want to mimic everything that you say, or something that you want to try to get across with your act. All right, overkill your opening. Now I'm going to continue with the video.
Blank. I ran to the front and I turned off the projector. I opened it up. Something smelled like it was burning. Mrs. Montgomery, I said, can I try to fix this? After school, she said. An hour after the final bell rang, I had disassembled the entire projector all over the floor. I was beginning to put it back together when the librarian came strolling through. What are you doing? She almost screamed at me. Who told you you could do this? I did, said Mrs. Montgomery. The librarian, though, zeroed in on me. This is school property, and it better work when you get it all back together again. If it doesn't work, your parents are going to have to pay for that.
All right. Now I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to go to my next point, which is introduce character using dialogue. Yes, Winnee mentioned about using dialogue in your speech. Now, specifically on delivery, you want to use dialogue to introduce your characters. Why? Because in dialogue, you can totally leverage on the emotion, just like how Micah did. He wants to introduce the librarian. He could have said the librarian came to the classroom and then the librarian was so angry, her face was so red, and I was scared. We get the point. The character was introduced, but do we feel as excited, as immersed in that story? Of course not. But with what Micah did, he bring us into a dialogue, into the actual classroom, and looking at the librarian with like this face, and then Mrs. Montgomery would be like something very chill, and then himself that was very scared because he could probably have to pay for that projector. So all this, when you use dialogue to introduce your character, you can do it in a very short sentences, probably in one paragraph, and then you can introduce all of them with also, you can leverage on the emotion. So you can have multiple layers within just one paragraph achieved. So that's killing, I don't know, 3 or 4 birds with one stone. That's why soap opera have a lot of dialogues and it's all talking about romance, but we still fall for it because the dialogues bring us that memory. It crawls into our emotion and bring back all the memories. All right. So that's the first that I have. Secondly, fanfare the protagonist and antagonist. Yes, Winnee also said this, but in delivery, what you want to do is, because in any story, there must be a protagonist and antagonist. Just for information, if you haven't already know what protagonist and antagonist is someone who working towards the goal in the story. In this case, it's the speaker, Micah, and the antagonist would be the librarian, someone who work against the goal of the story. Now, when you are trying to do this, is you want to take advantage of the emotions that they have. So if that antagonist going to be evil, going to be someone really bad, you want to portray that antagonist as bad as you can. And in this instance, Micah, I'm sure the librarian didn't really look him that way, but the way he exaggerated it, I think it's almost as believable. So that's the point why you want to have hype on introducing your protagonist and antagonist, because these are your main characters. Why would you not go all out with them? All right. The next one that I have is divide and conquer. Okay, this is not British tactics in the colonial times, but this is about how you divide your screen into segments. If you notice, and so far we've been watching 2 minutes of Micah's speech. Also, moving forward, you can see that what he did, every time he talked about the librarian or someone bad, someone evil, someone that negative, he always move to this side. I'm sure this is left or right, depending on what you see. So on this, my left side, he always stands here and then talk about the librarian. But when he talk about Mrs. Montgomery or himself, he would be on this side of the screen. Now, this might be a very subtle way of delivering a speech, but this is very important if you want to make a masterpiece. No normal speech can just do this by accident and hoping for the best. This is part of the planning. So you want to pay attention to that, because this will give the divide, because every time you talk about bad, negative, or something evil, you go to this side. You want to talk about yourself, something good, something positive, you will be in this side. So there's a clear divide in the screen for this side and for this side. All right. And then we're going to continue with the video.
Now, my parents did not have a lot of money. If I went home and told them they had to replace a projector at school, I would have been better off in the hands of that bad guy, Bad English. And so with focused energy, I started putting the projector back together. After 2 hours, it was whole. And Mrs. Montgomery said, let's try it. I reached up and I flipped the on switch, and there, out in front of us, projected onto the screen in all of its glory, was nothing. Nothing. The projector was dead. Mrs. Montgomery put her arm around me and she said, it's okay that you took the risk to try to fix it. The victory is not in the result. The victory is in the try. But I still had to tell my parents.
All right. The next point that I have is make a big deal of the conflict. Winnee mentioned about a conflict in a story. You must have a conflict, otherwise it's not a story, all right? But because conflict is the anchor of your speech, you must make a big deal out of it. Just like what my car did. It was just about a projector, but he made it like it's a life and death situation. He exaggerated, be like, I'm alive, something, nothing on the screen. It's just a projector. But why he exaggerate in this way? Because he want to make sure that audience now arrive at the conflict and to realize what is at stake for him, for a 9-year-old Mike Carr, so that we can understand that, yes, this is a big deal. For those audience who are young adults or adults, they probably don't care. They can probably pay about if the projector is broken. But for 9-year-old Mike, this is a big deal. So he wants to transfer that in a way that we need to understand how big of a deal this projector is if it's broken to him. So he exaggerates as much as you can without losing the authenticity. So that's the next point that I have here. Moving on to the next one. Don't tell, show us. What do I mean by this? If you can see when he was talking to Mrs. Montgomery, talking to Mike Carr, he did this, like over the shoulder, arm over the shoulder. Now, this gesture can only mean one thing. No matter what you see, hear or from someone that doing this, it must be something encouraging. It must be something very good. So this gesture, again, emphasize on how and what the role Mrs. Montgomery play. So the librarian will be something like very evil, something that zero in on him. But Mrs. Montgomery, what she did? She would embrace my car and say some encouraging words, because the victory is not in the result, victory is in the try. If we just see that without the audio, we can totally get it. Now, the next that I have is pause is your best friend forever. When he first introduced his tagline, his message, the victory is not in the result, victory is in the try. He then paused for like 5 to 6 seconds. Now, why he did this? First of all, for the audience to grasp and sink in the message, because until this point, he did not introduce any message yet. It was just about story, the librarian, the character, conflict. Now he first introduced. So when you, in your speech, want to introduce your message for the first time, you want to make it, you don't want to rush, you don't want to do so many movement. You want to stay in the middle of your camera. You want to take your time. You can lean in a little bit to your webcam, and then you say your words. After you say your words, you pause a little bit, look that in the camera, and go back again for that. For the dramatic effect that you can have for your audience. It has been fast, and slow, and then there's a little pause right after your message. It's important for you to give the audience a little break for them to get your message across. All right? So let's move on with the video.
When I got home, I snuck in and I thought, if I just hide in my closet, they'll forget I exist. But then I heard from the kitchen, Mike, come in. I walked in and I said, Mom, Dad, there's something I have to tell you. I love you and I am scared of sheriffs. I don't know. I ran to my room. I choked. I couldn't think of anything to say. I thought I'll tell them tomorrow. I crawled on my bed and I looked up at the ceiling and I thought, how do I get to Norway? Now, I know there are people from Norway in the audience, and can I just tell you, I don't know why Norway was my only safe haven on this planet at that point. Maybe I thought that Norway had made a deal with the UN, that they would not let crazy librarians come into their country, but at that night, I drifted off to a very restless sleep, dreaming of swimming to Norway. I was awakened with a jolt when my alarm went off.
All right. Now, the next point that I have is up your facial expressions game. Yes, this is, we all heard this. This is part of the body language. So if you body gestures and facial expressions, it all under body language. Now, how did my car did this? All right. Within a split moment, he displayed all 3 different emotions. The first one, when he said he was scared, so he would do some scared face like I don't know, when he was trying to talk to his parents, and then he will like smile because he just couldn't do it, so he smiled a little bit, and then he went scared again, and then he went natural. When we talk about Norway, you can look at his face. It was just like a relief. So how do you do this in terms of changing emotions? So what you want to get is you want to be immersed in that storyline, and then you have to be thinking ahead on what's coming next. So you always prepare in terms of emotions, so that display on your face, that facial expression, can be as authentic as how many practices you made. So of course, this the caveat is comes with practice, all right? And if you just pay attention to his eyebrows, I've seen my car talking in terms of not giving a speech, giving an interview or just random YouTube videos. His eyebrows did not look like that. But in this instance, his eyebrows was like pointing, I don't know, almost like 90 degrees, like this. Now, I'm sure this is some kind of practice that he did with his facial expression, but I'm sure that's an exaggeration as well. So there is no harm on doing that in terms of overly hypen your facial expression. That's always good enough. And if people don't get it, that would be their miss, because this is something that you want to portray, because it's very important for a 9-year-old to actually solve this problem, because this projector is now broken when he's thinking about it, and he's really scared to death. All right. So one of in his workshop, Mike Carr also said that if you want to see your body language is good or not, your facial expression is good or not, so when you practice, you record yourself and you rewatch it without the sound. And if you, by the end of the video, if you think that your video without the sound feels boring, it means your body language needs more improvement. So if you don't get from this, the exaggeration, the facial expression, the happiness, the angry looking, all these play an important role. So turn down the volume and then look at your video on how are you doing in terms of your body language. That's some tips from Mike Carr himself. Next one is master your depth of field. All right, so this is particularly about camera. As you can see, when Mike Carr was talking about Norway drifting off to Norway, he literally drifting off to the back. Now, this is very important, because when you try to say something that is very short, because he was just talking about that Norway bit, I think around 1 or 2 sentences, but to be more impactful, because he already mentioned about Norway, he tried to drift back and then it symbolizes, this movement symbolizes overnight. So the next line that he has on his sentence is just when he is already at school. So this is also another form of exaggerating, but very subtle. And of course, this is very important if you want to create your masterpiece. Subtle, but it's for the masterpiece. All right. Moving on to the video.
Off the next morning, as I got ready for the day, I was sick to my stomach. When I got to school, I knew my time was up. I slunk to the library to find Mrs. Landon sitting there reading her newspaper. She was drinking out of this coffee mug. That's concerning. I approached her and I told her the final fate of her projector. She slowly started looking up at me. Her lips started curling. Then she leaned forward and said, "Fine." What just happened? I'm still alive. I could not believe it.
I can see my time is already red, but it's just a little bit, I think, few points. I hope DOC can allow me just for a few minutes.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the next point that I have is disrupt the emotion. Now, from the dragon cup that he used as a prop, he keep escalating the anticipation. So he built the momentum up and up and up and up, and then until the lips are curling, then he redirect the emotions, and then what? I'm fine. I'm alive. Now, if you pay attention, before he said that, his body was just very narrow, very timid looking, and then looking down as well, and also very hesitant. But when he was relieved with the remarks by the librarian, his arms are wide open. He's looking up, and he was talking very quickly to show the difference before and after. So this is again another point that we should learn from Mike Carr. All right, and let's move on with the video.
My failure had not killed me. And yours will not kill you. What was it that Mrs. Montgomery said? The victory is not in the result. The victory is in the try. Ever since then, I have walked through life with a little librarian Landon sitting on this shoulder and a Mrs. Montgomery sitting on this shoulder. When I tried and gave...
All right, for this one, just a quick one. Turn your story by its head. What do I mean by this? Because up to this point, he was talking about the story, all right? And now he wants to talk to the audience. So we as a speaker, when we write our speech, we must know that this is a message time. It's no longer about the story. It's no longer about the librarian. It's no longer about Mrs. Montgomery. It's now, it's like a funnel. You must zero in to your audience. This is a message time. It used to be the student was my car, and then the teacher was Mrs. Montgomery. Now the role has changed. The student is the audience and the teacher is my car. So that's what you to portray. Now this is a lesson learned time. All right. So you want to emphasize on this by turning your story by its head. Moving on with the video.
My very first speech, which was a train wreck, Mrs. Landon told me, you should never try that again. But Mrs. Montgomery reminded me that the failure had taught me lessons that could be a springboard to future success. And she was right. But her words ring even more true for you. And let me tell you why I know this. For years, Toastmasters has been the place where leaders are made. You are here in some way to increase your leadership skill. And this world desperately needs leaders who will create fertile soil for innovation to grow. Toastmasters is a great example. When COVID hit this year, they could have said, no, we're just going to cancel the contest. We'll cancel the convention and we'll pick it up again next year. But instead, they decided to try something new, this virtual experience. And yes, there have been glitches, but that's what innovation is like. Glitches happen. And the lessons that they have learned take us miles beyond those organizations that just canceled. If you want to lead people to fix persistent problems, someday, somewhere, somebody is going to have to try something new, and you as the leader have the opportunity to encourage that effort that might fail, for a chance to find the future. The victory is in the try. Be a Montgomery leader. Encourage risk. Try new things. The victory is not in the result, my friends. The victory is in the try. Contest chair.
All right, just 2 quick points here. Give that optimistic look. Now, because this is take-home message time, you want to be optimistic, positive looking. Whatever you said, because this is going to be something positive, you must be optimistic. And then you want to reinforce your message. For the last 1 or 2 minutes, he said 3 times his taglines. The victory is in the it's not in the result, victory is in the try. He repeated it again to enforce, to actually force it, the message to the audience head. So that's what you want to do as well. And lastly, what I have here is ditch your quotation, current issue, please. Now, what I mean by this is people love to end their speeches with a quotation from a public figure, whatnot. That's nothing wrong with that, but becomes common, becomes cliche. So you want to win the contest, be something different. And one of the best way, just like what Mike Carr did, he used current event, how Toastmasters International tried to overcome a first virtual convention that never held before, the challenges and everything. Use that a COVID situation for his audience because he wants to appear relevant. And that's what you want with your message, with your delivery, with your content. In the end, if you make sense, if you're very logical, if you're very emotional, you also want to be relevant. I think my time is up. I don't know, last 5 minutes ago. But if you have any question, put on the chat below. I will answer them. But back to you,
Alright.
Ijin.
Thank you so much, Haffiszul. Another in-depth analysis on speech delivery. Wow. Okay, two very in-depth sessions we have there. So try to apply that. So here's a fun backstory. When I was asked to be the workshop moderator, I said, okay, I'll help out. So I said yes first. Then a few days later, I think to myself, what does a moderator do? So I asked my VP, so what do I do as a moderator? She said, oh, basically, you're the MC. You introduce the workshop, the speaker, you conduct the Q&A, make the session, make the game session for the break, and then wrap the whole thing up. Right. Okay. That realization hit. And I say to myself, I may not be the best MC, but I'll do my best. So should you. May not be the best, but be your best. Because victory is in the try. So here we are. So notice how I apply some of the points that our speaker mentioned just now for the past two sessions. With that, thank you to Winnee and Haffiszul for the very in-depth session. Now we have our group photo. Can we have our group photo? So everyone turn on their webcam. Yes, turn on their webcam and we have a nice big group photo. Okay, there's a few more. I'm sure some of you have working webcams, yes? Okay, big smile. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll have one more. Hey, Jackie. Okay. One more. 1, 2, 3. All right. This. Okay. So now we have a little bit of an energizer session. So let me share my screen. Let us play a game. Do you want to play a game? Let's play crosswords. So there are 5 words here. They're all very easy. I'll give you hints as we go along. And we'll try to complete this in order. Okay, so can I have everyone to unmute themselves so everyone can chip in on the ideas and try to guess what word it is.
Evaluation.
That's quick.
Awesome.
I told you it was easy. So yes, reflecting what happened, what went well, what could have been better, what to do next.
Oh, there was supposed to be a hint. Okay.
So good start, very good start. Saves a little bit of time. So on to the next. Roses are red, violets are blue. Similar to a hint, it is a
Clue.
Clue.
Is that?
Clue.
Clue. All right. It is a clue. Well done, Sid. You're so smart. Okay. Third. An elected officer who leads an organization. So the third one would be down.
Is it a name?
Alpha.
A proper noun.
Alpha.
For
Itu
KKTMC,
Anita.
the name is Anita.
I don't know.
I think it's
Anita.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Seriously?
nice.
Well, this will make it a very, very short game. I guess you guys are eager to go on to the next session. Done? Okay, fourth one. An adjective. Describing something grand in scale or someone heroic doing extraordinary.
Epic.
EPIC.
All right. Epic. Very nice. Okay, final one. You use this every time you speak or talk in varying.
Tone. TON.
Yes.
Present.
Yay.
I love number 3.
Yay.
Well done, well done.
Well done.
Give yourself a big clap.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even 3 minutes, not even 2 minutes. So well done, everyone. Yes, very nice and simple crosswords. Okay, so that is it. So our next speaker on the topic of evaluation, we have Adelina Adna Adenan. She is a district first runner-up for last term evaluation contest. She is the president of Heritage Toastmasters Club this term. Outside of Toastmasters, she is a makeup artist, the co-founder and trainer of Passionate Creative Space and Smart Youth Leadership and Development. She is also the Chief Creative Officer and trainer of the Ministry of Marketing Asia. So let us put our hands together to welcome our third and final speaker of this evening, Toastmaster Adelina.
Thank you. Oh, I cannot share screen.
Hang on. Okay, there you go. All yours.
Why, Ijin? Why?
I want to introduce you. Okay. All right.
Go. Okie dokies. Now, hang on, let me just move this. Hi, everyone. Okay, so my session is basically talking about evaluation. The speech evaluation contest is different, and we'll see why. Okay, so basically, when you think about evaluation, you think about, oh my God, I'm being graded, you know, like numbers. And technically, you are right. And we'll have a look at why and how later towards the end of this session. Okay, so basically for this session, we'll be covering a few things. It may look like a lot, but I promise you, it's very, it's not as long as you think it is. So we'll be covering why we evaluate, what's the difference between evaluating at a meeting as well as evaluating in a contest. And there is a difference. What to expect in an evaluation contest, what's the flow like, how to prepare for it, how to evaluate, judging criteria, that's where we're going to look at how we're being graded as a contestant, and then some tips that I've learned throughout my journey last year going through the evaluation contest. So why do we evaluate, right? Why do we evaluate? Basically, we evaluate to give feedback. So the sole reason for evaluation is basically for us to give feedback to the speaker, to provide them with constructive comments and create an environment of growth. when we are listening to a speaker, we may notice some things that are great, that they do really well, and then we may notice some things that maybe we have the experience or we have the knowledge to share with them to make their speeches better moving forward. So that's what evaluation is all about, basically. And in fact, in Pathways Level 1, we have a very specific project that says evaluation and feedback, where it covers all the things we need to know about how to evaluate and the kind of feedback that will help people or help speakers improve on their speeches. So we have to remember here what evaluation is not. So if evaluation is not a time to criticize or make any harsh comments. And sometimes when you are too direct or the evaluation feels like an attack, then it can be demotivating to the speaker, and the speaker may not want to continue to speak or may not want to be a part of the system. And it's not about being a grammar police as well. So it's more about the delivery and how the speaker conveys the message, structures their message and things like that. Now, I mentioned that evaluating at meetings is different from evaluating in contests. Now, I did not know this until I actually joined the evaluation contest and really seriously joined. Before looking at evaluation contests, when you're not in it, you don't see it. Do you know what I mean? So some of the differences that I can share here is at meetings, your evaluation is based on the project objectives. So evaluators will read through what are the project objectives and evaluate the speaker based on what they're supposed to achieve for the particular project. And sometimes that may not include giving feedback or commenting on speech structure or content. It could be on how they handle difficult audiences. So your evaluation in that meeting will not be on the content that they are delivering, but rather on how they communicate or how they interact with the problematic audience. And then the main aim is to provide the speaker with your observations and your suggestions to help them improve. And usually here, even though you have the same 2 to 3 minutes as in contest, but the observation and the suggestions that you give, sometimes it can be more than what you are structuring in a contest format, right? So in contests, you are evaluating based on the judging criteria. So then later on, we'll see what are the 4 judging criterias. And you are evaluating not based on the project. In fact, in the contest rulebook, it does mention that neither the test speaker's project nor any objectives that the speaker may have can be made known to the contestants, chief judge, voting judges, tie-breaking judge, or audience. So it's clearly stated in the contest rulebook that it's not about the project. So in contrary to evaluating in meetings, in contests, it's solely based on the judging criteria. So that's where you score your points. And for contests, it's actually a performance. So the aim is obviously to win, to be champion of the evaluation contest. So it is a performance. You know how in meetings we can go, okay, so I know that you did this, 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 and this, and it can be very direct. But in a contest, you need to be more eloquent with the words that you use, eloquent in the sentences. The way you structure your sentence makes a difference to make it your evaluation sound like a mini speech in itself. So those are some of the key differences between evaluating in meetings as well as evaluating in contests. Okay, follow me so far? Everyone good? Okay.
Yes, Adelina.
Thank you. All right, so what to expect in an evaluation contest? Basically, this is the a very basic flow of how the evaluation contest will run in all levels, basically. So we have the test speaker who will speak for about 5 to 7 minutes. And the test speaker will usually not be from, if it's club level, it won't be from the club, ideally. So then we have the test speaker. So while the test speaker is delivering their speech, the contestants will be taking notes. So they'll be given one sheet of paper, or since we're doing virtually, please prepare one sheet of paper to take notes throughout the 5 to 7 minute speech. One of the tips, or one of the things that I learned throughout my journey last year, was to figure out a structure of collecting these notes, so that when you're looking through it, it's not just a jumble of words, but you've already have your structure prepared. So whether it's like what I like, what I don't like, you can actually write that down on your paper, when they start. So then you have segments, so you can extract all that information to the second step, which is consolidating your notes. So you'll be given 5 minutes, taken to the breakout room if it's virtual, or taken to a physical room, a separate room in physical, and you'll be given 5 minutes for you to structure, write down, do whatever you need to do to prepare you for your presentation or delivery. Right? So after 5 minutes, the SAA will take your paper, or in virtual format, you have to put it aside and don't look at it and wait for your turn. And after your name has been called, okay, it's your turn, please go to the main room, or please, you will be escorted to the main room by the SAA. You'll deliver a presentation of 2 to 3 minutes long. So it's just like any evaluation, it's 2 to 3 minutes. Which means you have until about 3 minutes, 30 seconds maximum to qualify. Anything more than that, you will be disqualified from the contest, which is, the biggest scare, honestly. And then after that, after you've delivered your presentation, you can stay on and listen to other contestants. If you are the last person, then you will only be able to enjoy the 1 minute of silence. Okay, and then next would be the ballot tally, where the ballot counters will tally up all the points from the judges and hand it over to the chief judge. So that's the basic run through of what to expect in an evaluation contest. Now, when you're waiting for your turn, it depends on the organizers how they will be dealing with that. Sometimes there'll be games, sometimes they'll ask you to look at the wall, especially when we're in virtual, look at the wall, or they'll engage you in some way to distract you from basically continuing to think about how you'll be delivering your speech evaluation. So for me, this is the part that you really need to make sure you keep your focus, so that even with all the games or whatever distraction that they throw at you, you will still be ready for the evaluation presentation. So contest preparation is actually very simple. Number 1 is practice. Number 2 is do your research. And number 3 is to find your style. Now, why I say practice, it just means, take up any opportunity to be a speech evaluator. And now that we're virtual, the opportunity is in abundance. You can go to any club and offer yourself as a speech evaluator. So at least you have some practice there. Now, last year, my president, Melissa, made sure all the contestants became evaluators if they were contesting in the evaluation contest. And like if it were table topics, she'll make sure that we had rounds of table topics just to, practice. And then when I say research, YouTube and Google are your best friends. That's where I did my research. So look at what the consensus is basically on how how to evaluate, see people's different styles, and then develop your own style. What works best for you? What best showcases your evaluation skills? And look at what kind of format for you that works. Okay, so everybody has a different style when evaluating. If you search evaluation, speech evaluation contest on YouTube, you'll see all the different types or styles of delivering an evaluation. If you were able to have a look at the, what do you call this? The video or the live stream of last year's district contest, you also notice that all the evaluators have their own styles, all from the different divisions. So find yours. It's best to find it earlier, and just practice and continue with your research and see what kind of implementation. Also, if you can, when you're practicing, find friends to help you, to give you the feedback. So basically, like Pathways Level 1, Project 2, someone who evaluates the evaluator. Okay, so that really helps as well. Now, how to evaluate? The first step was to take notes, obviously. So what kind of notes? Basically is, what did you observe from the test speaker? What did you feel could be improved based on how you would have liked to hear or the information being delivered? So because at the end of the day, evaluation is your opinion. There's no right or wrong, it's your opinion. So think about what you saw that you like, you dislike, or how it made you feel. How did the speech make you feel? And what stood out to you? So think about those things and try to incorporate that in your notes. And then in your evaluation, what did you like? What do you think could have been done better, and how to do it? So give examples. That's important when you're doing your evaluation, is to not only give your recommendations, but also how can they do it better? What do you mean by by your recommendation? Just like what Hafiz has mentioned just now, show, don't tell. So what do you mean? You know, if you say, I wish you would have used your stage more. How should they have used their stage? How should they have lifted their hands and things like that? And then some things to remember is, don't forget to have an opening and a closing. It could be 1 or 2 sentences, that's completely fine. And then think about your transitions. So be clear. Maybe if you're transitioning between commendations to recommendations, you can say, here's what I liked about so-and-so speech. And then to transition to the recommendation, if I may propose some tweaks, or if I may propose some recommendation, so people will know the distinction between whether you are giving a commendation or recommendation. If you're transitioning between points, then it could be like firstly, secondly, thirdly, or another thing I would have loved to see in your speech, and then you can continue with your recommendations. And don't forget to summarize. Why this is important is because the judging criteria includes summation. So we'll see that in the next slide. So summarize your points, not the speaker's content. So whatever commendation, recommendation you gave, summarize that and not the speaker's content. That is not what the summation points will be for. And as with every evaluation, keep it positive, keep it encouraging, because you still want it to be on a more on an encouraging note, something where if the speaker were to hear it, they could take something from it and feel enthusiastic about making those changes that you're recommending, or for them to be motivated to take those recommendations and incorporate them in their next speech. So be diplomatic, yet use easy to understand words. It's not a time for jargon, they may not understand. So keep your language simple, right? So judging criteria for evaluation contests, it's very simple. There are only 4. We have analytical quality, recommendations, technique, and summation. So that's 100 points, and most of the points are in in you showing how how clear and focused are your evaluation points, and then were they positive. So being positive is actually something that you can get points for. And then be specific and helpful. That's where examples really help in illustrating those attributes. And then technique, that is your style, basically. And then summation is being concise and encouraging, and basically making sure that you can sum up what you've said, so it's easier to take away, for the speaker to take away. All right, and then we have visual. These are some virtual tips. So this is just specific to being in a virtual arena, because our contest from area onwards, actually from contest onwards, will be in virtual. So think about your visuals. Your webcam should ideally be eye level. If it's not, then you'll have to elevate your laptop or elevate your phone. Have it be eye level, not from under your chin or not from above your forehead. And if you're having troubles with low light, what do you call this? With your lightings, either get another light, or if it's really something that you cannot help with, make sure you update your Zoom and go to video settings and check the low light function, so you can adjust to make yourself brighter or darker. Okay, so that's something that you can do within Zoom. Now, your virtual space is basically make sure that you have a clean background. Even if you have maybe a small border on your wall, that's still completely fine, as long as it's not, messy or too busy, because the focus should be on you when you're presenting in a contest format. We are not allowed to use virtual background, so you will have to find an actual background that works. And then your usage of space. Now, because if it's virtual and for a contest, they will need to see you waist up, so that they can see your gestures and how you can use the space, which Haffiz also touched upon just now, referring to how Mike Carr used the space that he had. So very similarly, maybe we don't need to do the flickering, all right? But something that can show, for instance, like numbers are usually what we use for evaluation. So 1, 2, 3, make sure they're visible. You can go forward and you can move backward for effect. So, and of course your facial expressions. So you can give you can make sure all of those are thought about, and make sure that they're purposeful, that supports your evaluation. And of course audio, because at the beginning of every contest we'll go, am I visible, am I audible? So audio, avoid noisy areas, and avoid using wired earphones and headphones unless you have a super long table. Otherwise it might come off, or you might move and then your phone falls off, and that will take up time, and the contest does not allow for compensation of time for things like that. Now, some things that you can do is to log into Zoom on your own, practice, test it out. So that's something that can be done. And the internet connection is very important. So do try to find a spot in the house that has good internet connection, or you may need to find a internet booster that just plugs into the wall and boost your internet signal to help with that. Yeah. So that being said, we covered why we evaluate. So we evaluate to provide feedback, help people to grow. And then in meetings, it's based on the project objectives. Evaluation is based on judging criteria when it's in contest. And then what to expect in an evaluation contest is listening to the test speaker, consolidating our notes, and then waiting for our turn, delivering the evaluation, and then listening to other contestants, and then we wait for the results. Then next is contest preparations, basically practice, research, and find your styles. And that's all you need to do, just keep practicing. How to evaluate, just take notes based on your observation, structure your evaluation, and then remember your opening, closing, transitions, as well as summarize your points. And then for judging criteria, there are 4: analytical quality, recommendations, technique, and summation. And of course, because we are embarking on virtual contests, we need to be mindful of the visuals, virtual space, and audio pertaining to the virtual stage. And with that, I leave you with this quote by Jonathan Fang, who's a District 85 Speech Evaluation Champion in 2017. The reason why speech evaluation is probably the most important speech you deliver is because it is the part where you are actually giving value to somebody. So somebody actually has a chance to grow and improve based on your evaluation. And that is why evaluation is super important in Toastmasters, because it helps people to grow and people to improve, and it's helped us also. And thank you. I hand over back to our moderator.
Yay.
Thank you, Adelina. So that's the caveat that contest evaluation is a little bit different from our regular meeting evaluation, because it has to be fair to all contestants. So there's a certain level of anonymity. Okay. So thank you, Adelina, for that session. Our next session would be the Q&A. So I've gathered over a dozen questions from of you guys. So thank you all for your questions. I will go through them. And for the questions would be open to all 3 speakers. But I would, for example, if it's a content question, then I would direct it to Winnee, but Haffiz and Adelina can chip in if you want. Okay. So the first question that I've got is it more important to find your delivery style than it is to please the evaluators or judges? Because there are famous speakers who give monotonous speeches. Okay. So is it important to find your own delivery style than it is to please the judges? So I would say Haffiz.
All right.
For delivery.
Thank you, Eugene, for the question, and thank you for the one asking. So this is very straightforward. Because this is a contest, there's a criteria in the judging sheet that a volume or flexibility or variety of your voice. It's part of that delivery, the 30% delivery. So like it or not, you need to have variety in terms of your voice. Please do not confuse with Toastmasters speech with any political or formal speech out there. Those are speeches that, you know, gonna be like 1 hour long, and then that's a different type of speech. It's not something in the realm of Toastmasters. So in Toastmasters contest, we have the criteria. So you need to look through all these criteria, and you need every single one of them. You need to pay attention to. Since you are not giving a political speech, so you must obey the judging criteria. Simple as that.
Okay. Thank you, Haffiz, for that. Winnee, Adelina, anything to add?
Maybe just a little bit. I think at the end of the day, yeah, I think at the end of the day, what Haffiz says is right. If it's because it's a contest, you do really need to pay attention to the judging criteria. But if you're delivering a speech, it's also best to do it in your style. as long as you follow the judging criteria. So finding your style is actually going to make you more comfortable. And when you're more comfortable, then it's a lot easier for you to deliver your speech as well.
Okay. Right. Okay, thank you, Adelina. So moving on to the next question. Is it a gold standard that we must give more recommendations than recommendations during evaluation? I think it means, is it a must to give more compliments than suggestions in the evaluation contest? So, Adelina?
Okay, thanks, Ijin. Oh, technically, you should be giving more recommendations because you can't improve from commendations, but you can improve from recommendations. When you are giving because it's 2 to 3 minutes, I would say focus on recommendations, what are points for improvement, and even so, pick maybe 2 or 3 tops if you have the time. But 2 is usually what I would say. So one commendation and 2 recommendation would be, at least based on my research and experience, that would be the ideal number. Just like how speeches, we do 3 points. So it's the same, just 1 plus 2. The reason being is that because commendation, to improve, you want to know obviously what you're doing well, but improvements come from knowing what is it that you are not excelling it yet. Does that answer the question?
Okay. So according to the judging criteria, you should focus more on the recommendation.
Yes, because in the judging criteria, if you notice, it said being helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers that. Great, thank you, Adelina. Okay, third question. How much does your technology setup matters in an online contest? So do I need like a standalone mic, like proper mic? Do I need a HD webcam? Or I can just go with my laptop webcam that I have. So how much of that matters? This one I would say Hafiz.
All right. I have a rule of thumb. If you don't use it very often, just buy as cheap as possible that you can get your hands on. Because you're just going to use it during the contest season or Toastmasters meeting. So just go through Lazada and Shopee, and I'm sure you're going to find something within the first 10 seconds on Shopee or Lazada. So that would be helpful. But if you are more serious, like I have this, I don't just use this for a Toastmasters meeting. I do podcasting. I do also different things that have no interest in other people. So I basically need to invest in this. I even have some lighting here. If you can see that, if you just switch off, can be lighter. I can play with my light in whatever mood that I need to be in. So these are the things that you want to go into if you are serious into this. But if you just for Toastmasters meeting or contest, something very basic would be sufficient. That's it.
Okay. And it also has to be within your budget as well.
I think that's a given. If it's not budget, you're not gonna steal from the shop, is it?
Or you can borrow from your friends.
Yeah, or from your
competitors. All right. So next question to follow up this: if there's any tips for contestants which are technological handicapped? So Hafiz, any tips for contestants who are technological handicapped?
Okay, I'm gonna give a very practical answer. So be ready, okay? The answer for this is very simple.
Okay.
If you are not technological savvy, find someone that technologically savvy. Someone that you're comfortable, of course, something that you're comfortable, or maybe your cousins or whatever. Grab them and ask about these things. Because in terms of setting up a good technological gadgets for this, you need someone who actually to be there or to do what. And we are in the MCO, it's very hard to do workshop and try to tell everything from A to Z. So the most practical way, I'm not saying you cannot learn from YouTube or whatever, but the most practical way, fastest maybe, is to ask someone nearby, maybe even your neighbor. So try that.
Good point. So if you need help, go ask for help, basically. All right. Thank you, Haffiz. Our next question. How do you know what to recommend to the test speaker in your evaluation? Like how do you know exactly what to suggest to the test speaker that you evaluated? This one for Adelina.
Okay, so how do you know? Like I mentioned, when you are taking notes, observe what is it that you like, what is it that you didn't like. It's an opinion. So if you feel like they were going too fast, then that is the recommendation. Then the recommendation would be to slow down. If you think they needed pauses, then that is the recommendation, to insert pauses into the speech. And commendation is basically what you like, what you thought that the speaker did really well. So it's all very subjective to your preference, but at the same time, to be still within the realm of Toastmasters. So we know that we can comment. If I think the best tip that I can give is to look into the evaluation sheets that we get in Pathways. They've broken it down to clarity, eye contact, gestures and all this. So that's a list of things that you can use to guide in what to evaluate in.
Okay. Thank you, Adelina. So based on next question. I'll say this one for Winnee. So is it necessary to always use your personal story in your speech, for prepared speeches?
Yes, use personal stories. You don't want to tell other people's stories. You don't want to use Jack Ma stories or Oprah stories, which is so overrated. Use your own story. We never heard of your story. And then you can exaggerate it. You can make it as funny as possible. We don't know. So you just use your own story.
Just like most of the world champions, most if not all.
Yeah.
So it's like a golden rule.
Yes.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, next is... this one is a bit more general. So how do you deliver your speech during the contest when you cannot feed off the energy from the audience? Because in a virtual setting, it's quite quiet, quite silent. So how do you deliver, and since you can't feed off that energy from the audience? So open up to all three speakers. What do you guys think?
Practice and imagination. So when I say, so like my suggestion just now was to practice, log into Zoom by yourself and practice, because technically when you do that, it's about the same as contest, because you won't be hearing anyone talking. So when you're in Zoom alone, you still won't be hearing anyone talking, and you can record yourself and you can rewatch and see, oh, hang on, I need to do this one, or I need to put more enthusiasm here. And once you practice more, you will be more comfortable with technically talking to yourself. Because in contest, you really can't see anyone. Like now, we can still see people, but in contest, you only see your contest Toastmaster and maybe the timer.
Oh, okay. So it's even less.
Yeah, it's even less people. You can't see anyone. The judges you can't see because they'll just say judge 1, judge 2, judge 3. And more often than not, it's you hide non-video participants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you technically will only see the contest Toastmaster and the 2 timers.
Right.
Yeah, so
Wow.
practicing and you just imagining that you're delivering it to an audience and just imagine their reaction.
Okay. Haffiz, Winnee, anything you want to add? Okay. Or if you want to go the drastic way, here's what I thought of is to have an actual audience in front of you behind the camera. If you can do that, then that way you have some source of energy. But that's hypothetically.
Yeah, but then you will have the noise of the audience from your mic.
True, true.
Behind the glass door.
Maybe, yeah. Okay. So next question is, how much in advance does a speaker start preparing and practicing for a contest? I would say it's for the prepared speech. So how much time in advance does one prepare?
I'll answer this. As early as possible. If you're planning to join next year, you should start already now. Yeah, you should have ideas in your head, and then I'll tell you my experience. My first draft was not my. I think I have about 5 drafts before coming to my final draft. So you have to keep editing, practicing. So as early as possible. Yeah.
Just if I can just add a little bit, I think the question is not how long you need to prepare or whatever, but just desensitize yourself and join the contest, because that's the best way to prepare for the contest. You know, you maybe not be ready, because you can never be ready. You can never tell yourself I'm ready. Whoever saying that probably lying. So what you can do is you just go join a contest and then get an experience. If you didn't win, that's good, because you're gonna learn a lot, and that's what you want to get. Learning a lot and then try again. As simple as that.
Adelina?
Well, I'm seeing Jonathan's comment. What if the contest is next month? Then I guess you know your timeline.
Get to it.
If you're planning to join, start.
So if it's not this year, there's always next year. So yeah. So as soon as possible is the answer. Okay. Next question is, do all speakers memorize their speech? I would say, Winnee?
Yes, please.
To what extent?
You want to know your speech like the back of your hand. Practice it until you won't, even though you get nervous and even though you forget about it, it's printed here already. You have to memorize it.
Okay. To really embed it into your mind. So next question is, what is your top 3 things to evaluate on a speaker? If you need to prioritize 3 things, since time is limited, what is your top 3 things? I would say the person who asked this is, what is the 3 things you would evaluate for a speaker? The top 3 priority things.
Top 3 priority things. For me personally, it really depends. So when I'm taking notes, there might be, say, 5 recommendations. But when you look at your recommendations, the list that you have, look at which one will help them the most. That is how you prioritize your top 3. Because if you were to say, okay, I'm going to look at their gestures, or I'm going to look at their tone and voice, vocal variety. And what if the test speaker has excellent gestures and vocal variety? Then you've only got your top 1 left, to evaluate. So for me, it's just take notes, just observe and take notes. And during that 5 minutes that you have, figure out which are the 2 or 3 that you really want to touch base on and focus on that. Forget the rest, focus on those.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Adelina. Next question is also a top 3 question. So this one's for Winnee. Who is your top 3 role models in crafting an international speech? It's more of a, I would say, personal question.
I don't have a role model, but I learned from all the world champions. I've been studying them like really hard. I watched their dissection of their speech, and you can go to this website called Tactical Talks, and they really dissect everything for you. You go and read them, you will understand why certain speech were, because of the elements that I have, the 10 C's that I show you. So this way you can learn from them. I don't have a specific one, but I do like Sherry Sue, I do like Darren Day, and I like Mohammed Katani. I like these 3 now.
So learn from the best, whoever they are. Next question. It's also a personal question for Hafiz. So what's your top 3 lessons learned from Mike Carr or other world public speaking champion?
All right. Let's talk about my car. So one thing that you need to take your contest seriously, and how my car did this, I think it's gonna be mind blowing. Do you know that during the day of the contest, he actually sent his family and his pets, I think he got a few dogs, to a vacation somewhere, like to a hotel. So he actually spent money. Well, this is a world champion, of course, but he actually spent money for his family to stay in a hotel. So he got the house to himself, of course, no restriction. And he actually have the whole place for him, whatnot, no distraction at all. So you want to take it seriously. I mean, if you can, of course, not everyone, I'm not recommending everyone to send everyone in your home to a hotel, but take your contest seriously. If you already in the contest, but you maybe only practice 2-3 times, and then you're thinking that I think I'm gonna do all right. I mean, you already half of your body already there. Might as well go all in, because I think if it's worth doing, it must be worth doing well. And another one is I like the idea from Adelina just now to use the internet booster, Wi-Fi booster. But what is more fail-proof is you actually have the Ethernet cable connect to your modem. In that way, there is no interaction at all, unless, I don't know, Unify actually have problem. If it's just within your house, you want to use a hardware cable to connect from your laptop to your modem, because in this way there won't be any interruption. Yeah. So I think these are top tips that I learned from my car.
Wow. So I would say if you cannot send your family away, you yourself go somewhere else, away from distraction. Okay, so that's actually all the questions that I have. So we have still some time left. I'll open up the floor to anyone who wants to ask questions directly or generally. So if you have any questions, you can unmute and just ask straight away.
Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, Ravi.
Thank you. I have a little cue for Adelina, but before that, thanks to all the three speakers. Awesome is the word I can ascribe to your fantastic content, the great tips, plenty of takeaway. Adelina, you did mention that the contestants in an evaluation contest are given one sheet of paper, and you emphasize that, which means it must be gospel truth. I'm wondering, I'm wondering why they must be specifically given one sheet of paper. Is it because we are running short of paper? After all, they all have 2 to 3 minutes to speak. So why bother about the paper? Thank you for bearing with me on this.
Thank you, Ravi. Well, actually, in the evaluation contest kit, there's a very specific Toastmaster International document specifically for taking notes. So I think even if you have multiple papers, you really won't have time to use them. They will supply you with an additional paper in case you know, what do you call this? You maybe something happened to the paper, the original paper that they gave you, something spilled on it or whatever. But frankly speaking, because we're doing it virtually, that doesn't really apply, honestly. Yeah, but also for me personally, right? The reason why I say one piece of paper is so that you don't clutter your notes too much. You only have 5 minutes to consolidate the notes. If you have multiple sheets of paper, you are going to have a lot of wasted time just going through what you've written. Yeah, exactly. So if you have just one sheet, so it's it's just, everything is just there.
Thank you, Adelina. Thank you. And back to you, moderator. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ravi, for the very specific question. So any question from anyone else? Going once, going twice. If not, remember to unmute yourself if you want to ask. If not, then thank you, everyone. Thank you to the speakers for the in-depth session that you shared with us. And now we move to the certificates for our speakers. So let me, oops. I'll share my screen. And here we go. First certificate to our first speaker, Winnee Raplin. Okay. Take a picture.
Well done, Winnee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay, thank you, Winnee. Our next speaker is Mohd Haffiszul on speech delivery. So Hafiz, all right. Ready, smile. All right. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Hafiz. And to our third and final speaker, Adelina Adna. Okay, ready, smile. All right. Right, thank you everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. Thank you once again to the speakers. And thank you to all of you for spending your Tuesday evening with us learning so many new things. Okay, give yourself a big round of applause. You may unmute if you want. Okay, with that, I'll pass the time to our club president, Anita Nadaraja, for the closing. Anita, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ejin. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ejin. And also, I would like to say a big thank you and well done to all the role players this evening for making this workshop a very successful workshop. I think everybody here, some people have dropped off, but I'm sure everybody who attended will agree that it was so useful. We got so many tips and tricks. So thank you to the organizing chairperson, Melody. Thank you, Melody. Thank you, Ejin, for moderating this workshop, and also to our great speakers, Winnee, Haffiz, and Adelina. Thank you for your time and effort in putting together this amazing workshop. And also to our silent role players behind the scenes. We've got the timer, Zivan. Thank you, Zivan, and also chat monitor, Jonathan. So as our star speakers, what they shared amazing tips and tricks for us for the international speech and also the evaluation contest. But guys, these are not just any tips and tricks. These are winning tips and tricks. And as Ejin said, it is contest season now. And you don't just participate to win, but you participate to improve your public speaking skills. And I can say this from experience, there's something else that you gain, which is your self-confidence. It is a great booster for your self-confidence. I think anybody who has ever taken part in any kind of contest will agree with that. So please contact your VPE, give your name, say yes to participating in the contest, the one that's coming up very soon for all the clubs. And because, as we know, the winning is in the trying, right? So this workshop this evening is recorded and we will upload it soon in YouTube. So you may find it there, or if you can't find the link, please contact any of our exco. And with that, thank you very much, guys, for joining us this evening. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening and good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Well
you,
done.
everyone.